Normal, Mr. Speaker, that I give thanks to Almighty God for continuing to bless me with an opportunity to account for my stewardship to the nation. I also use the opportunity to thank the people of constituency number 1, East Bastia, who continue to repose their confidence in me, Mr. Speaker. I also want to thank the member from number 8 for speaking about the housing in East Bastia, which will transform East Bastia. There was no transformation since the former member, former elected representative of East Bastia and former Deputy Prime Minister, who gave the folks there toilets, flush toilets, and got rid of the latrines. And we must commend, I'll always commend the former elected representative and Ambassador Michael Oliver Powell. Mr. Speaker, as we continue to develop in East Bastia, many things are going to happen. And the people of East Bastia, you know me, and I know you. So I want to tell you very early, woe to the shepherd that will lead the sheep astray. Mr. Speaker, I of the 14 subjects that I have under my purview, I want to just touch 3 of them. The first one being electricity. Mr. Speaker, over the past few weeks, there has been several outages being experienced by the public in St. Kitts. And these outages comprise of planned and unplanned, or both planned, beg your pardon, and unplanned outages. The planned outages, Mr. Speaker, were tied to scheduled maintenance program. The notice of these outages was sent and are usually sent to the media houses on a weekly basis, with the last such notice being sent for the week of the 16th to the 20th of July. The causes of the unscheduled outages are multifaceted linked, Mr. Speaker, in most part to factors such as lightning strikes, natural degradation of aging infrastructure, and vegetation growth and construction activities by external entities. SCELEC, being cognizant, being fully aware, Mr. Speaker, of the inconvenience that these outages cause to consumers, is therefore taking concrete steps to mitigate their occurrence and keep them to a bare minimum, while at the same time placing emphasis on safe and speedy restoration wherever or whenever they do occur. These actions, Mr. Speaker, though not exhaustive, are preventative in nature and include the stepping up of routine inspections and maintenance to identify and correct incidences of natural degradation, instituting a comprehensive vegetation management program to clear trees from substations and electrical lines island-wide, which is becoming a major problem. And I take this opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to implore all residents to assist Skellig in its effort to maintain the supply by trimming the trees on their premises so as to keep them from interfering with the electrical lines. Our efforts also include strengthening the electrical infrastructure to make it more resilient to lightning strike. Mr. Speaker, with the rapid pace of development of the country, there continues to be an increase in size of the transmission network, as well as a greater demand for electricity. These are challenges that any developing country faces. This year, Mr. Speaker, however, Skellig is working to ensure that as a company, it is well poised to meet these challenges. This year, Skellig has introduced, Mr. Speaker, a formal 7-week internship program geared at training the youth of our country in the working Mr. Speaker, in the working or the work being done, beg your pardon, by Skellig. This is to ensure, Mr. Speaker, that as a country, we will have trained and well-skilled personnel in the future to join the workforce of Skellig. Skellig is also currently engaged in discussions with solar energy producers. It is the intention within the next 12 to 18 months to have a 10 megawatt of baseload power being produced by solar. This is in an effort to meet the increase in demand in a manner which is sustainable, affordable, and in keeping with the country's drive towards renewable energy. In the area of water, Mr. Speaker, the region, we are aware, experienced a deep and prolonged drought starting in 2015 that lasted up to mid-2017. The drought in St. Kitts was characterized by historic low annual rainfall totals in 2015 and in 2016. They were 24 and 35 inches respectively. We experienced normal rainfall when we accumulated some 60.5 inches in 2017. And I may have mentioned before that the long-term average is 55 inches. The Water Services Department responded to low flows and negligible recharge of aquifers by instituting an island-wide rationing program in August 2015. Mr. Speaker, rationing island-wide ended in August 2017. But during those periods, the Water Services Department has continued to advocate conservation and introduce the following measures in 2015, and they are still in place, Mr. Speaker, which include the continuation of imploring persons, Mr. Speaker, without systems to explore purchasing large storage containers of 500 gallons or more. Still in place that all residents, government and private institutions are required to make the repair of leaks as a priority. We also implored businesses, Mr. Speaker, to implement a water management contingency plan, which should involve daily monitoring of their water meters. And government itself, Mr. Speaker, continues to ensure that critical institutions, for example, our hospitals and our schools, have on-site standby water storage. Conservation measures advocated include as well no washing of vehicles with water hoses, the mandatory no watering of grass, and the strict monitoring of sandpipes, beg your pardon. So we expect that our deputy won't water his lawn.
Won't have one.
He has none.
No.
Important to note, though, Mr. Speaker, is the cost of getting our water. And I want to inform the nation that it requires a significant amount of electrical energy to lift water from hundreds of feet below the Earth's surface to our elevated storage tanks. Desalination is even more energy intensive, and production costs are approximately 2 to 3 times higher than well water production. The Water Services Department, therefore, is one of the largest users of electricity in the Federation. Most of this cost, Mr. Speaker, is not passed on to the consumers, but instead it is subsidized by the government. We therefore urge consumers to use the water wisely, as this can delay the introduction of desalination and the significant costs that can be passed on to consumers. Our water tariff, Mr. Speaker, was last adjusted 18 years ago in 2000. Water remains universally accessible in St. Kitts, whereby 99% of consumers have pipe-borne water to their homes. Yet our tariff is the lowest in the region, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, when we examine the cost of water per 1,000 gallons based on a monthly consumption of 5,000 gallons in St. Kitts, the domestic tariff is $7.20 EC per 1,000 gallons and $15 EC per 1,000 gallons for the commercial sector. Mr. Speaker, across the channel in Nevis, the cost per 1,000 gallons is $14 EC, Mr. Speaker, in Nevis, and for the commercial sector, $32.50, Mr. Speaker. In Jamaica, it's $13 in the domestic tariff, and these are per 1,000 gallons. In Barbados, $23. In Dominica, $10.12. In Grenada, $13.50. In Antigua, $25. And in the Bahamas, $56 per 1,000 gallons as part of the domestic tariff. Commercially, in Jamaica, it's $35 versus our $15. In Barbados, $13.57. In Grenada, $33.75, Mr. Speaker. In Antigua, $50 per 1,000 gallons. And in the Bahamas, $74 per 1,000 gallons. So, Mr. Speaker, our tariff is the lowest in the region. Mr. Speaker. But let's look at the present situation, Mr. Speaker. Rainfall returned to normality in 2017. As I said earlier, 60.5 inches of rain fell in 2017, exceeding the long-term average of 55 inches. The Caribbean Climate Forum, CARICOF, the regional entity responsible for weather forecasting, predicted a similar 2018 as 2017, but this has not materialized thus far, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we accumulated 24.1 inches in 2016 and 7.6 inches in 2015, the worst year on record, for the same period under consideration. And to date, Mr. Speaker, we have had only 9.4 inches of rainfall as of June the 30th this year, Mr. Speaker. Thus, rationing was reintroduced in mid-February 2018 after being suspended in August 2017. The areas now affected include Basseterre, Bird Rock, or parts of Basseterre, Bird Rock, Frigate Bay, St. Peter's, New Road, Shadwell, Pine Garden, and Cairn to Keys. The Basseterre system is now operating, Mr. Speaker, at the margins and is susceptible to shocks. Any event that even slightly reduces supply, be it seasonal rainfall fluctuation, excessive rainfall, clogged surface intakes, down pumps, will impact on the reliability of the supply. Mr. Speaker, routine monitoring of our wells have indicated that several wells, including about 25% of wells supplying the Basseterre system, have total dissolved solids, TDS, above World Health Organization guidelines. This has implications for human health, Mr. Speaker, and is an indication of salinization of the aquifer. But so far, Mr. Speaker, we have taken steps. So far, the following action steps have been taken. The Water Services Department, Mr. Speaker, has collaborated with the Royal Utilities, supplier of desalinated water to Marriott, to link our system as the Royal Utilities can provide the Frigate Bay system with 500,000 gallons of water produced at their plant. So we are therefore in the process of negotiating a price to purchase the said water. Government, Mr. Speaker, is also currently in discussions with BEAD to resolve outstanding issues that will connect the approximately 1 million gallons of water now available from the 2 Shadwell wells. Mr. Speaker, the government is committed to further exploration of our groundwater resources, as Ocean Earth Technology has done preliminary work and has identified several potential well sites that will add another 1 million gallons per day to the system. Mr. Speaker, we are committed to continue to explore desalinization as a viable option, especially in time of drought. Finally, on water, Mr. Speaker, the Water Services Department has had an ongoing capital project to disinfect by chlorination all of the island's public water supplies under its management. To date, 99% of the island's potable water has been disinfected. The outstanding supplies of water will be chlorinated by the end of this month. Chlorination, Mr. Speaker, of our systems, I'm advised, was necessary to protect from gastrointestinal and other waterborne diseases, usually characterized by diarrhea and vomiting, and can lead to death in vulnerable individuals, particularly the aged and the very young. Mr. Speaker, water quality tests indicated that chlorination was necessary as some of our sources were being linked to the outbreak of diarrheal diseases. Chlorination, I am further advised, Mr. Speaker, is the most effective and economical means of water disinfection. Done properly, it inactivates bacteria and some viruses and protects the water from recontamination during transmission and storage. The World Health Organization, the WHO, established a guideline value for chlorine in drinking water, but noted, and I quote, "In humans and animals exposed to chlorine in drinking water, no specific adverse treatment-related effects have been observed." This assumes that the water is pre-treated, Mr. Speaker. This means as well, Mr. Speaker, that there is no link between chlorine and any illnesses in drinking water, but they establish a guideline that is more strict than required, Mr. Speaker. The Water Services Department therefore chlorinates at internationally recommended levels. This is proven by continuous testing of the supplies island-wide by both the Water Services Department and the Department of Environmental Health. Mr. Speaker, water is life. It's important to all of us. In respect of our continuing infrastructure development, our Island Main Road project continues, Mr. Speaker. And I want to commend all users for their high tolerance level as they commute along this network on a daily basis. The Keys and Canada contract with Lachlan Construction continues apace. This contract is on schedule for completion on the 4th of September 2018, which sees the main drain and V-drain being implemented, being constructed. Mr. Speaker, the camps to the medical school, this contract as well is on schedule, being undertaken by Ali Construction for sidewalk and V-drain, Mr. Speaker, at a value of some $1.3 million. The Roster Challengers area, this contract as well is on schedule and should be completed by the 4th of September, Mr. Speaker. The drainage work at camps to Best Buy is also on schedule and will be completed as per the said date. Mr. Speaker, work has also commenced on the Island Main Road from camps to Challengers. This is a contract being undertaken by Surrey Paving and Aggregates. Mr. Speaker, works commenced in June and the expected completion date is the 4th of October 2018. The member from number 8, Mr. Speaker, spoke to road and housing development projects. Construction of these roads, I can inform this House and the nation, is imminent, as $40 million has already been approved for roads in number 5. For roads, next week we'll start. They're imminent. Member from number 5, imminent. In number 5, in number 4 as well, Mr. Speaker, in number 7 and number 8, and of course over there in number 1 at Taylor's. $40 million has been earmarked for that. An additional sum of monies I was promised by the Minister of Finance. He's not here, but I know he's listening. That when we have finished those constituencies, we'll move on to number 2 in Pine Gardens. We'll move on to number 3 down there in Boyd's and Limekiln and other areas. We move on to number 6, Mr. Speaker. In Sadler's behind the school. Those areas have been already earmarked. I hope I didn't miss any. Of course, we'll move on to as well to number 8. Well, Mr. Speaker, yes, member, we'll fix the roads in Boys you promised so long and couldn't do it because you're on the other side. Mr. Speaker, work is ongoing as well in the area of Keys to Connery, Mr. Speaker. And I can assure you as well that we have now received the bathymetric surveys and the fisheries breakwater in Old Road will now be finalized in terms of the negotiation of the contract, and as well the Old Road Bay development, Mr. Speaker, which is some 95% design, is some 95% complete. I'm happy to report that we have now received the bathymetric survey report, and this data will be used to finalize the designs. And by mid-August, I'm advised by the ministry that the ministry will be in a position to invite public tenders on this project, Mr. Speaker. And finally, Mr. Speaker, as we go to lunch. Is that lunchtime? Sorry. Mr. Speaker, finally, as we continue to enhance our productive infrastructure, construction of the new cruise pier at Port Sante continues apace. Construction of this facility, this project, is progressing as planned and on schedule. The dredging works, Mr. Speaker, have been completed. The test pile program has commenced, and it is anticipated it will end today, July the 13th. And this would be followed by the access trestle piling on July 14. And these are estimated times, Mr. Speaker. And we still have an open invitation out for the country to come and see the pile being driven. And Mr. Speaker, when the barges disappeared, they actually went to shelter from the oncoming storm, Beryl. When the barges disappeared years ago, under the former administration, they never came back. But those barges are here, Mr. Speaker, and the piling works. The driving, the access trestle piling is ongoing, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the concrete form work for the pile caps will begin in late July, early August. And precast concrete activity for the deck planks will also start in early August. I must also mention an incident, Mr. Speaker, that occurred at the site. And I want to report that there are no major incidents reported, except for an excavator which fell into the sea as a result of loose revetment. This excavator, Mr. Speaker, is owned and operated by Kelly Construction, and the operator sustained minor injury. But since that time, the excavator has been removed and is fully operational. The subcontractors currently on the project are American Bridge and Kelly Construction. The St. Kitts Marine Works is engaged as a subcontractor of American Bridge. In terms of staffing, Mr. Speaker, for all these projects, I can report that at this stage, the nature of work is equipment intense, Mr. Speaker. So as at the moment, the project employs approximately 40 persons. It is anticipated, however, that at peak time, the project will employ in excess of over 100 persons. And in terms of the overall employment generated thus far, for all our capital projects that are ongoing, we are well over 100 persons being employed currently. That is what our team in the administration is doing, Mr. Speaker. And we are putting people first. May it please you, Mr. Speaker, our projects are on the way and on schedule.
Stay up to date with news, programs, and activities of the government with SKNIS. Like us on Facebook. Listen to us on SoundCloud. Follow us on Twitter. And watch our videos on YouTube. Connect with us today. SKNIS, St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.